Hey, everybody. So, in what areas of your life are you still working for Pharaoh? Right now, we're in the month of Nisan, which is the beginning of Exodus and that whole journey out of the system of enslavement and the journey toward getting to know God more deeply and better than they had ever. I mean, their whole life, they had not really been in a system where they were allowed to know God. So it was quite this whole process that they had to go through. Anyway, we're going to relate some of that to business and some of the things that have happened with us in our businesses as we have encountered Nissans in the past and possibly where we think we're going from now in Nisan. So for me, when I started learning about the Hebrew months and Nisan in particular, which is my favorite month, it's my birth month, and the start of the whole cycle. So yeah, it's just very cool to me. But I was always looking at it and going, okay, when am I going to get to quit my day job? When do I get out from under Pharaoh? When do I get to go do my own thing? And it was actually, I don't even know, and I don't want to think about how many Nissans that was that I watched that come and go. And I got free in other areas, but not in that area. So I am happy to say that now I have been free from baking bricks for Pharaoh. And I wanted to talk about how that came about because it is kind of hard to know when to quit your day job, right? I mean, some of you are probably still there. And I was there a lot longer than I thought I would be, unfortunately. I thought that when I got enough money to quit, I would just quit. And that meant when I got enough money that I could squeak by, I would quit. And I got enough money that I thought I could quit. So I talked to God about it and he says, no, stay until it's time to go. So I'm like, great. When is that? Like, where is the marker for this? When can I go? And so these various things would happen and I would, just check in and nope, not time. Meanwhile, I'm hiring people because I'm working a day job. I'm there 6 days a week. I'm putting in overtime. I'm writing books. I'm doing all of this stuff. So I'm just hiring and having to communicate with staff while I'm doing my day job. And that wasn't great, but it was doable. Kept me afloat, kept me moving forward because I had quit my business before. It got too hard for me for a while. So that was the thing for me, is that I cannot do it all. I am not designed to do it all, shouldn't be doing it all. And if you quit your job and decide you're going to be your own boss, then ultimately what happens is you become Pharaoh. And I didn't know that. I didn't realize that I was getting set up to really be free. And so the business built up, the day job kept going. I was sacking money away. I thought, oh, I've got a year's salary. Surely I can quit my job now. Nope, couldn't quit. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm here. And then one day I was getting ready to go to work and I just had this thought, this little weird thought in my head that I should Google how to quit my job in case the day ever came, just for whenever that happens, then I'll know. Because at my job, you can't just, say you quit and walk out. There's like a whole process and there's forms to fill out. It's like unjoining a cult, basically. It's not a clean process. And I wanted it to be a clean process when it was time. So, so I Google and I find the form number and I print it out and I'm like, okay, got it. Go to work and I have a new boss, she's 2 weeks in. It's rocky. She doesn't know anything about me or what I do on the side. So she basically gave me this ultimatum, and what it felt like was like I was hanging on a cliff already by the fingers, and somebody came along and stomped on them. And so I walked out and just took some time and, got on Facebook, asked for prayer for wisdom because I didn't want my emotions running this show and influencing my decisions at all. But when I calmed down and when I talked to my husband and processed it overnight, it was like, yeah, it's time. So I filled out that form and turned it in, and in Nisan, I was out of there finally. So that was my story about it. I'm going to let somebody else talk.
Well, I think Alice should go next because she got out of it before I did. And I still am not out of it, but almost.
Well, the interesting thing I thought with Alice is she, on the last day of the cycle, got herself into some new things, but the new things are like she doesn't have to do a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like 2 new businesses.
Yeah. I need more stuff to do. And that's one of the things I actually, I like semi-retired. Oh, I'd have to do math. More than 15 years ago, I think around 17, I'd have to remember for sure, years ago. So it's been a long time since I have worked full time in my profession. And interestingly, I just like so I looked it up, and probably that happened for me in Tishri instead of in Nisan is when I made that decision. And then like Seneca's job, there's like this kind of big ordeal. So it was a couple months before I was actually free. But one of the things that I did discover is, and I've kind of gone through different phases where I wasn't Pharaoh, I was completely free. And then I kind of started some other things, and to a certain extent, I have become Pharaoh. And then, like Seneca said, just a few, like a couple hours before Nisan began this year, I purchased 2 businesses that, and my primary purpose in purchasing them is because they are things that I can manage at a distance. It's, right now is kind of right now it's a little bit of work because there's a lot of like, how do I want to do this? How do I want to run things? I need to get set up, moved everything over, all the social media accounts. And so there's work right now, but it's definitely not something that, it's not like I'm making something that I'm going to have to be in production mode. It's so definitely less Pharaoh-like than than I've had. And I really believe and felt that was part of why I was to purchase them, is because they were setting me up for freedom. So, and whatever, and what I don't know, exactly what that's going to look like, or what that means, and what God's going to do with the other things that I'm involved in, because I don't necessarily, I don't know. So I just did what he told me to do. So here we are.
I know. I think there's all this pressure on having to have it all figured out, and that is so not the case with God.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm a planner. I like to have a plan. So it is an ongoing struggle for me, but I'm well practiced at it. After 17 years, I'm well practiced at it enough, or however many years it's been, that I know that that's my tendency, is I want that, but I also know I'm not going to get it, and it's always been fine. So I'm okay with, it just is kind of an ongoing cycle of, okay, yeah, well, here we are again, it'll be fine. So
and Dell, in case you guys don't know, is our friend, but she also wrote the 3rd book in the Healing in the Hebrew Months series, which is a series that I'm in also. So she runs the website healingfrequenciesmusic.com. So it's a lot on frequency healing with sound and that kind of thing.
And probably if you've run across Seneca and I's sites, you've also run across a link to hers.
Well, we are the trifecta.
Yes, we are.
Oh, well, I'll take that as my cue. By trade, I'm a professional musician and teacher. and have done that, I don't know, 40 years, which is kind of scary to think I've been doing it that long. And I've owned a business before I met the two of you. It was a coffee shop, a traveling coffee shop. And I learned a lot about business just from making a lot of mistakes there, and figuring things out and having employees and all of that. But there got to be a point with that I knew eventually I was going to get out of it. And like Seneca every year, is it time? Is it time? Is it time? And I actually, if I go back and think about it, I think the business sold in Nisan.
Wow.
Because I think it was right around April of 2012 that the business sold. And I worked for the business for most of the summer before I turned it over to them so I could train them how to use all the equipment. So I just now realized that. Well, then I go about my business, and here we are, Nisan 5782, which is this year. And I started thinking last fall about retiring from teaching. And yes, I am of the retirement age that I can actually start getting money every month. And I hadn't thought about it until one of these little thoughts go into my little pea brain. And one of the things that I know about the winter months, that's a marinating time. It's a time to, let the seeds start, growing, and you're thinking about things, you're processing things. So when it came to the beginning of this semester, which was the 1st of February, I had made the decision that I am going to step out of teaching because, the thing is everything worked right. I'm losing a whole group of students, graduating a group of them that have all completed their recitals. They've done all of this stuff. So the timing was perfect. And I'd always said I would never leave a studio where I have people who still have a lot of stuff to complete. All of that is done. And it just so happened to fall this spring. Well, we all know that that's not perchance. So it's official as of last week. That the retirement. So I announced the retirement probably a couple of days before Nisan, because it would have been in March that I did it, right before spring break. And it won't take place, because like Seneca, I'm an April birthday, Nisan, yeah. And so you don't start receiving retirement until the month after. So this is all very new for me, but what it does is I am stepping out of my personal Egypt. I am walking into the next season, which is basically a continuation of what I'm doing, but I have several arms of the same thing going on. Part of that being that I'm turning my house into a retreat center where people can come, they can get some training on some of the things that I do. And if they just want to be here, they have places to, a place to go. And I don't, like you, Alice, I don't know what it's going to look like. There's a step of trusting in this. And if we're fearful of stepping out, then chances are we're never going to do it. So I'm looking forward to this next season, what that's going to look like. So that's my story in a very small nutshell.
Yeah, it's exciting what everybody's got going on. One of the things that I've noticed as a pattern is to look at what's going on in your life around Passover. So, anything that's kind of coming to a head right there, that's probably the area that you're needing to get freedom in. And that'll be the areas that you'll be walking out over the next few months, because it's a process. And if it's not the area that you were hoping, it's not that will never come. It's process again. I was just going to read something that I wrote in my book. We don't know exactly all that has to be orchestrated in our own personal exodus. Israel had the Abrahamic covenant. They were supposed to be a free nation, but they forgot their identity and wound up in bondage. I don't know why it took so long for God to create Moses, but he did. And then he had to move Moses into the palace so that he would understand Egyptian government and process, move him back out before he got too entrenched in the life of a prince, move him into the desert where he could deal with his self-image problems and eventually form him into a leader. Then there were the 10 plagues and a very hard time before the breakthrough, which left everybody with a tremendous amount of insecurity, and uncertainty. And my point is that a process is certainly involved. And if we don't have the capacity to accept the needed change and do what we must do, then God will faithfully work on us until we can get there.
I think that people struggle with the process because I think we had a conversation earlier about, let's have it now. We don't, and I always relate this to music because if you've ever played a musical instrument, you pick it up, you're not going to learn it right away. There's this whole going into a practice room, picking that puppy up, practicing your scales, your arpeggios. You can join the Aristocats. Do your scales and arpeggios. There are foundations to everything that we do in life that require us doing something very repetitive. Whether it's in business or whether it's in whatever we do, there is a repetition process that's necessary that builds an energetic strength. So I'm bringing the frequency piece into it here that allows us to go to the next level of something. But unfortunately, I believe our society, we have a microwave mentality. Stick it in for 10 seconds, pull it out. It's good to eat, but don't realize the food's been destroyed in the process. So we're learning to take those steps and just keep pushing. And just, even one small victory is still a victory. Mm-hmm. We expect the big victories. And so I'm learning and have for quite some time, if it's one step, even if it's only punch forward, it's more forward than it was than sitting there still. Mm-hmm. And we forget that part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that just the story of the Israelites, they made a lot of mistakes and errors along the way. And sometimes that did delay their progress, but they did get there in the end. God, and he does that with us too. I don't think it necessarily has to be 40 whole years. We hope not, but but he does, he takes us around that mountain and to that challenge, to that test until we pass. He's not, that's his entire goal for everything that we do, is that we become who he created us to be. And so, if we need to practice more than he, so then that's fine with him. He's got all eternity. So, but that's, we get impatient with that process. So, I know I do. And I have to remind myself, okay. And the more I remind myself, the more I'm like, okay, I can be at peace with this, and I'll be okay as long as I'm in step with him and I'm not running ahead and I'm not lagging behind. If I just keep doing what he's asked me to do each day, then I'll get there in the end. So, and just, I didn't, these two, this opportunity to purchase these two things literally dropped out of nowhere just a couple months ago. So this wasn't something I was thinking about or considering, but it was the type of thing I had been looking for. I was figuring I'd have to build something. So whereas no, I get to step in, to something that's been around for a couple decades and carry it to its next, because I think that's part of it too. It's right. It's not just our own personal Nisan or progress through our next level of success, but also in our business, so that the business itself can have new levels of things that God has for it and what he wants to do with it. So
yeah, because you have a bigger vision than she had, but she gets out of it, so that's her Nisan.
Yeah,
she's free.
Yeah. So it's and I think that's an interesting thing too. I hadn't really thought about it in that context, that was her Pharaoh and it's my not Pharaoh. So yeah. But that's pretty cool. And God's so good that way. It's it's a win-win-win for everybody. So
I am just, over here feeling like I'm all good. So I'm interested in what comes up for me around Passover and where I'm getting free at. And I'm waiting to see because there's
I
always
find,
something.
Yeah.
I find for me, it's generally mindsets.
Yeah, usually for me too.
Yeah. I
And
mean, oh, I
that's,
thought about
my
something.
book, Healing in the Hebrew Months, and it's actually about mindsets and emotions and that kind of thing. But, we can talk business too.
Well, but see, mindsets are part of a business because, Alice, you just brought it up. This woman that you're buying the business from only wanted to take it so far. She had a mindset to take it at that point. And until we get to a position where we're able to make some adjustments in our mindsets, we can't go the next direction. And I was sharing with someone on a call yesterday, when I came up with the musical frequencies of the Hebrew letters, I had it sitting in front of me for 2 years before I know what I had, because I had a mindset of what I thought it was going to look like. I sat there and stared at it every day for 2 years. Seneca, you probably remember this, not knowing what it was. And then all of a sudden, one day I'm sitting in my living room and it's look at it again, look at it again. And then all of a sudden the light came on, somebody's home. And business is the same way.
Yeah.
Until we can adjust something within our thinking process, it's going to be difficult for us to do that next arm of the business or the next piece. I mean, if you go to my website, there are several things that are the arm of Healing Frequencies Music that I would never have dreamed in 2015 or 14, whatever year it was I started, that I'd be doing it. And Seneca, I know you're the same way, Alice. So, and really, when I think it was Adar when I started creating the albums. It was at the end of it. It was Adar, right at the beginning of Adar, but the things didn't come out until Nisan of the very first year that I did it. So if I go back and I start looking at where things happen in the months that they happen in, I hadn't really thought about it, but a lot of it seems to take place in Nisan.
Yeah.
Transition time, baby, transition time.
Yep, walking out of the old.
You
To
still
a
see
brave
some
new
of that in Tishri.
Yeah. Tishri is when you get promoted.
You get all kinds of yummy business ideas that help you get
Yeah,
outside of your box.
Tishri is good. Yeah. They're all
Well,
good. I like them all. Every month's got something that's just cool.
Yep.
Well, I think that about wraps us up. So Alice and I actually have a little class. It's a 5-day free challenge, Supernatural Business. So if you want to learn more of this stuff, listen to me and Alice yak some more at you and give you assignments, then sign up for that over on our website. It's www.supernaturalbiz.com.
and I actually have a class too. And mine is the frequency immersion practitioner course, where you can learn how to do all the things that I do and give people sound baths and all those things. And yeah, that started, I don't know, a year and a half ago.
But is it
Right
up on your
around.
website? You can sign up.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Oh, awesome.
So if you go into healingfrequenciesmusic.com and you click on training, it takes you to another website, frequencyimmersion.com. All 3 classes are up there, and it's been up for a couple of months. So I spent a lot of time during the off season when things aren't quite as busy. That's that marinating time. I let things marinate, and then all of a sudden you put them out in the early spring season so that they can sprout and they can grow and do all the things that they need to do. So that just recently became public.
Yeah. So if you want to do sound healing from a Christian perspective, definitely go over and check Dell out.
And we'll put a link to that in the description So of the video, the link to her site. So you can find it easy. Talk to y'all next time.
Thank you.